How's it going, everybody?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, going pretty well. We've been having internet issues here, so I've got the internet guys coming sometimes.
Keeping busy over there?
They said between the hours of 8 and 5, so I guess if they show up during our meeting, I'll have to just go. But and it's snowing outside, so it's a good time to be inside. All right. Well, does anybody have any questions or anything from last week? Analia emailed me about how to do a search, how to do your files, search through your files and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to cover that today. But is there anything else that anybody has needed help on since last time? No? All right. So I'm just going to jump into that then. Analia, we're going to talk a little bit about searching. So give me just a second and I will get my screen shared. Get everything on the right monitor here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Is everybody able to see my screen there? I'm going to assume that that's a yes. Hopefully everybody can see. Still can't see it yet?
I'm not seeing anything right now.
Let me try it again. How's that? Is that working better?
There we go.
So we got that. I got my chat open. Okay, so we're good. Okay, so Analia was asking about how to search for designs. Okay, there are multiple places where you can do a search from. The first one that I'll show is just inside the open dialog. So if you click on open, then it goes to where your files are at. The way that search works is it's going to search anything inside the folder that you're in, and then it will search subfolders of that folder. So if I do a search right now for praying hands, if I spelled it right, praying hands, it's not going to find anything because there's nothing in that folder that has praying hands in it. So if I wanted to be able to find praying hands, I need to start in a folder that has the artwork. I keep the classic collection artwork here in this classic collection folder. So if I start there at the root of that folder, then do a search for praying hands. And they've been changing the search engine in Windows. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing with it, but I have noticed changes anyway. And so as I do a search up here, I've noticed that it's changed so that it gives a list here, a quick list. And if you click on one of these, it's automatically going to open it up. Sometimes I don't like doing that because I want to see it a little bit larger. So I would click on this blue arrow, and that would then send me to the search results first. And that way I can control how big these icons are, that sort of stuff, to get a better idea of what I'm looking at. So then I can scroll through and get to the different hands that have praying, or the different designs that have praying hands in them. So the reason that this works, the search works, is that if I were to click on this, I don't know if it actually shows in this dialog, but I'll open this one up and then we'll go from there. So if we open up this design, if I go back to File and do a Save As so that we can see how it's saved, there are tags here. So it's been tagged as rosary, flower, floral, and praying hands. So that's why it popped up by searching for praying hands, is because it's got that tag. So in our classic collection, we've gone through and tagged the artwork so that you can search it by those keywords. But if you ever wanted to do your own artwork, or if you ever wanted to adjust the tags on, something like this. So let's just say that we wanted to add the search term of religious, or we want to add Catholic or something like that. We can add those tags in as well, and then that would just add to the existing tags that we have. And then when I save it, then it will be saved with those new tags. So in open or import, if you click on import, the same thing applies. You've got a search up here in the corner. But again, those searches are going to work as long as you are starting out in the root folder, the folder that actually has those things. If you really wanted to do a search of everything, you can just click on this PC and it's going to search every drive. As you can see, I've got multiple hard drives here, so it would take a while probably to search through everything. So most of the time I'm going to go to where I know that I want to search for my artwork first, and then I'll go from there. So in my case, it's documents, MemorialDESIGNER, and then classic collection here is where I had started before. Any questions on that part so far? Okay, so the next place that I search artwork is in the Connect Content Docker. Now, Connect Content they've been working on this over the last number of versions of CorelDRAW. So it's a little different in 2021 than it has been in the past. Some of the older versions of CorelDRAW, there's multiple Dockers. There's a Connect browser. There's different versions of that Docker there. So depending on your version, but here in 2021, they've gone to just the Connect Content. And it also has a search. So I can come up here. And again, if I was searching for the same term, praying hands, I could just type it in there and then the results are going to pop up here. If I want to see larger or smaller icons so I can see more or less of them at the same time, I can slide that like that. The way that this search works is right now we've got it set for all content. So it's searching through all of the different files and folders in here, including the religious where that praying hands would have been. If I clicked on animals first and then did a praying hands search, nothing's going to be found because there are no praying hands under the animals category. So I would need to be under a different category that actually has those in there. So if you wanted to narrow down a search, you can do that as well by doing, praying hands that are only in the religious category or in the panels category or whatever the case may be. So if you wanted to search for panels that have praying hands, then you can do it that way. There are also subcategories to each of those. So you can even further, look through different categories and say, well, I want, panels with praying hands and roses. and then you can see them that way. You do need to remember though to get rid of the search if you want to be able to go back to seeing everything. So we'll go back to all content and scroll up to the top here and go to all categories, and that way we'll have access again to everything. The last place that I use for searching is just in File Explorer itself. So if I open up File Explorer, so over here I'm back in my Documents/MemorialDESIGNER folder, and then Classic Collection. And so since I'm in this folder, when I do my search again, it should populate those same results. Praying hands, again, they're going to pop up here. I don't really like to use these ones. I'll click the arrow, or I think you can hit enter. I'm going to try. Yeah, so if you just hit enter, then it will go to the next screen as well. And I would normally change my view to extra large icons so that I can see them better. And because I'm doing this inside of Explorer, if I want to open it up in CorelDRAW, then I can click on it or double click and it will open it up. Okay. Or if you're on, so normally I'm going to do this on 2 monitors. I'll have this over on another monitor, and then I would find the one that I want and drag and drop. If you drag and drop into an existing window, it's the equivalent of doing an import. Okay, so it's going to import it into that existing document. So if I was in here and I had my stone shape all done up, then I could, just drag and drop this onto there like that. And this over here does drag and drop as well, so you can drag and drop from there. The open and import dialog boxes used to support that, but now they don't. So if I tried to drag and drop, it's not going to let me. So if you like drag and drop, you'd need to use the Content Docker or File Explorer to do that. If you take the file and instead of putting it onto a open document, if you move it up here to the document tab area and let go there, then it's going to open it. So that's the equivalent of opening versus importing. And those are really the 3 ways that I bring in my artwork. I guess the last way would be, instead of going about that, I could do a copy and paste, and I could do copy. Let's grab a different one just to show how it works. So I could grab this and do a copy, not cut, didn't mean to do that. Copy, and then come over here and do a paste, Control V to paste it. But most of the time I'm either dragging and dropping or using the import and open dialogs. So Analia, does that answer your question on how to do search? The main thing is that in order for search to work, your designs have to have keywords and they have to be tagged. So if you want to be able to do search in French, you can certainly go through all of these and tag them in French. All of the designs, you can right click on it inside the Connect Content Docker and just say, actually, no, it's not working. I was thinking it would let me click the properties button, but it doesn't want to let me do that. Not sure why. So if you open it up and then you go to Save As, there is the option for tags. If you don't see tags, it could be that this is too small. So if this portion down here is too small, then you can't see the tags option. So if you click right here where the gray meets the white, click and drag up, and then you'll have a bigger area here and be able to see the tags that way. So you can come in and change those and add tags as much as you want. Obviously, the more you tag stuff, the better it's going to be, the more accurate it's going to be. So I find that it's best to tag your artwork as much as you can. There is one more place that I use for searching artwork myself, and that is if I am looking for designs that I can use when I'm designing, because we are licensed for other software other than just the stuff that we've got. If we go to MemorialDESIGNER.com, actually it might not work because we're having internet issues. But if we go to MemorialDESIGNER.com, then there is a search bar in the upper left of the website, and we can search from there. But again, I'm having internet issues, so it's not going to work on my end. But okay. So that covers the opening, searching kind of stuff. All right. So that, I don't remember if we covered Connect Content Docker or not, but that is definitely one that I use for browsing through the artwork. There are a couple things to the Connect Content Docker. There's the search term here. The Get More button is going to let you go and go to Corel's website to get more things like fills and that. I don't usually use a lot of this, other than there is the fonts pack that I'll download. I get their fonts and that sort of stuff, but most of their artwork or designs or fills are not really targeted toward monuments, and so I don't use a lot of their stuff. Under here is the option to sort, and then you can also index the folder. So if all of your designs aren't showing up for some reason, it means that it hasn't indexed correctly, hasn't made that database of searchable terms. And so indexing the folder will fix that most of the time. But because I've got so many drawings in here, I'm not going to click on that because it would take quite a while for that to work. There are options for recent designs that you've looked, and then also favorites. I don't really have any favorites, but if I were to have a favorite design, you should be able to just right click on it and say favorite, and then it's going to pop up in the favorites here. So if you use praying hands a lot, or certain crosses or whatever the case may be, if there's designs that you use a lot, you can favorite them to get to them there. The thing that I use for getting to artwork that I use a lot would actually be the tray. So along with Connect Content Docker is one that's called the tray. And I actually like to have my tray positioned over here on the left. So I'm going to drag and drop it over there. And I've got a few different trays set up. So I've got books, panels, rings, and I haven't done a lot of stuff on these, but I was just playing around with it the other day. So you can build different trays, and then from the content Docker, wherever it disappeared to, not sure where it just went, right here. So from the content Docker, you can drag and drop from there into your tray, and it creates a shortcut to that particular design. So I wouldn't want that obviously in rings, so I will remove from the rings tray. But that's how you add to those trays, is by dragging and dropping either from the Connect Content Docker, or you can do the same thing just from the File Explorer. So if I did a search for some rings here and found rings that I like, I can just drag and drop them into there. Those are the ones that I use most often, right? And then I can make them a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, whatever, to fill that space up a little bit. So that way I've got quick access to these that I use all the time, right? So that's what the tray is for. And again, the tray has been changed in 2021. They've been making changes to it. So being able to have the drop down of different trays is new. It used to be that they were tabs. you can add, delete, rename, and open your tray files there. When you click on the piece that you want to open, if you don't want to drag and drop, there are options down here for importing, opening up where that file is actually located, or removing it from the tray. I usually just drag and drop though to get them from there to where I want it to be. So it used to be in past versions that the tray was by default located down here. And now with this version, it's actually it's quite tall, a lot taller than it used to be. So I don't know if I'd still use, I never really liked it down here to begin with, but that's one reason that I move it over to the side, is I think it's nicer to have the Docker over here than the stuff that I'm working on is still centered. So, okay. Any questions on that stuff so far? We'll go back to the tray here. Just one second. All right, sorry, we'll go back to the connect content Docker here. The categories that these are set up in, I put all of the files in those categories so that they show up that way. If you want to categorize your own files so that it works the same way, when you go to File and say Save As, in addition to the tags, then there's also a categories option here. So if we were to put this in a religious category, and as you start typing, it's going to give you ones that are already available. So you can just choose to click on it if you want, instead of having to type everything out. So by giving it that category, then it should show up also in the religious category. It was probably already there to begin with, but if I were to go to religious now, this design is going to be in there. Okay. There are also, because the way that the content Docker works, you can, this set of folders comes from, if we go to Tools, Options, Global, File Locations, and then Images. This is that folder that I'm pointing to. So the Classic Collection / Designs is what I'm pointing to. And that's why they show up in here under all content, is because I have pointed to that folder. However, you can see I've also got 3 other folders here. And so if you click Add New, then what that lets you do is it lets you go to create an alias, meaning you can go and choose other areas where your artwork is at. So if I wanted to, I could come to a different thing and, say in-house only or designs or whatever, and select that folder, and then they're going to show up under here. So you can add multiple folders so that you can search through different things as well, and have all of your artwork then together this way. I have noticed though that all content is only going to search these things from there until the blue line. It's not going to search these. So if I wanted to be able to search any of these folders, you have to click on them first and then go up to search and do your search there. So that also matters as well. But I think that, excuse me, that pretty much covers the connect content Docker and the tray and how those work. So we will call that good, I think. All right, any questions? Nope. Okay. So going along the topic of Dockers and ones that I use a lot, I kind of want to talk about shaping. because this is one of those things that gets, I mean, I've used this for a long time and it still gets a little confusing. So what I'd like to do is talk about how shapes interact with each other and how the shaping docker makes that happen. So if I had multiple shapes, if I drew 2 rectangles here and I select both of them, actually, you know what I forgot to do is turn on my on-screen keyboard shortcut. So let me do that really quick. There we go. Okay, so if I click on these, go back over here. Then up here across the top on the property bar, we get some of the shaping tools. Okay, so we get combine and weld, trim, intersect, simplify, front minus back, back minus front, and then boundary. All of those actually are the same ones that exist here, except for combine. Combine is not in this list. And you can see how they're separated there as well. So the same tools exist there and here, but the difference between the property bar and over here in the Docker is that the Docker lets you have a little bit more control over your source object and your target object and how they work together. And you can also, so I could take this and I can just say weld to, and then click on another one, and it's going to weld to that next object. I don't have to shift select both of them. You can just grab one, weld to, and then push on the target, and that will, that's how that works. If you want to leave any of the originals, so let's just say we want to leave the source object when we do this weld. So grab this, weld to this one. It left that source object so that we could reuse it later if we wanted to. Okay. So that's what source object means. And then leaving target object is if I were to click on this and weld it to this one, then it's going to leave my target object, which is the one I'm welding to. So occasionally that's going to be something that you want to do, is leave your source or your target. And the same thing applies for each of these. And so you can get different results by how you want those to work. When it comes to the top option, or the ones up in the property bar up here, it's going to apply, or it's going to do a weld without any of the boxes checked. So it's going to do it without this checked and without that checked. But if you want more control, then that's why you would use the shape Docker, is so that way you can control which way you want this to go. One of the features that I really like is the boundary option. So up here we've got a boundary, and one of the reasons that I would use boundary, and let me see if I can find a design here. And I keep getting a warning on my end that my internet is slow. So if I'm breaking up or anything, just let me know if I need to repeat anything. Okay, so let's go, and we're just going to do a search for a scene. And let's go with this one. Okay, so I've got some artwork, little scenery going on here. If I want to build my stone and put the scene on the stone, okay, most of the time, I'm going to want to fill the bottom portion of this with a frosted area so that I can show that bottom frosted and the top would stay polished. And with this particular design, because there are the gaps, so if we go in here, you can see how there's gaps there. And over here, obviously, it's not closed on either side, and then it's also open up on the bottom. So a lot of times when you've got art scenery, you're going to be left with open areas like that. So if I wanted to show this frosted, I need to draw a new object in order to make that happen. So I'm going to grab my polyline tool and simply click and drag, and I'm just going to go I'll just do this quickly, but I'm just going to go around it as much as I can. Okay, like that. And then I'll go from there to there, and I'll do the same thing. I'll come in like this. That's certainly not the best. And then we'll close that up. Didn't look like I closed it up, so we'll zoom in here a little bit and attach those two to each other, and maybe get rid of those. Okay, so you can see how I went and drew a new object to get my frosted area, and then I can fill that in and send it to the back, and then I'll send my stone to the back, and now I've got this area down here that can show the frost. Okay, so that's one way of doing it, is to go and draw exactly what you want the whole way. Now the downside to that is if we were to go and cut this stencil, the way that it is right now is going to double cut, so we don't want that whole line to be double cut. And so if we go in here, we would need to clean this up. We would need to get rid of a lot of these things in order to make it cuttable. So another option is to take lines and basically just draw the lines that are going to end up getting cut when it comes time to production. So I'm just going to come in here and draw those lines. The cutter's going to cut that, and that's where I'm going to pull the stencil anyway. So I can just choose wherever I want those points to be. And if I do it this way, then the benefit is that the cutter is actually going to cut these lines for me, and I don't need to remove them. And they're only single lines. So the downside to having them only as single lines is that it's still not fillable. That the portion underneath it that I need to show frosted is still not fillable, right? So to make it fillable, that's what we're going to use the boundary tool for. As soon as we get all of these lines drawn in here that we need in order to make this cut, then we will use boundary to make that work. So I created lines across the top, and then I will create lines that go from there to here and over to here and then back up to here. And then I also want to make sure that it touches right here. So I just need that to touch with that one. And I have snapping on so that these nodes I can snap along one of the edges of the other piece. It's important that they're touching. They need to be touching in order for boundary to work. And so that's important to have happen. And we've also got this little piece over here that we don't need. So there are a couple of things you can do to get rid of that. You can use your erase tool if you want to. Come in here and click on it and erase. So that's one option. Or you can grab and draw a box, for instance, and then we're just going to take trim and trim to this, and then it's going to trim it back right there along that edge. So we could have done the same thing, pulled that all the way up like that. And that way when we trim, it's going to cut off both top and bottom there. And we can do the same thing over here as well. We're just going to grab this, drag, draw a box, and instead of using the dock over here, I'll just shift select over here and then hit trim right there, and it'll do the same thing that I need it to do. Okay, so now we've got our scene, and we've got this line that we've created And then we've got all those little teeny tiny lines here that we've created. So what I'll do is I'll grab all of those at the same time and create my boundary. And what boundary does is it will go and create a new object around all of those existing objects. And now I've got my frost line that I can then send to the back. And I don't need this line anymore that I had created, so I'll delete that one. But I'm going to keep all of those little ones because that way the cutter will cut those. And when it comes time to cutting, I'll just make sure that I delete this one so that I don't have that double cutting anymore. But I can use that to get rid of it. Just like that. So that's one thing that I'd use boundary for. Now, Aaron, you're saying that you're having connection issues or that it's really low quality today. It did mention that the quality was bad, so that's likely on my end. Okay, so I think what we'll do, maybe, I mean, I don't want you to have to sit through this not working. So what we'll do, I think if everybody's okay, we'll just go ahead and stop for today. Obviously the internet is having major issues, so hopefully the recording worked, is my hope. And that way I'll go ahead and upload this to YouTube and you can go back and rewatch it. And hopefully it won't be jumbled that way. That's my hope anyway. That should work because it's recording on my end and not in the cloud. So let's go ahead and call it a day. Unless you've got anything else that you really need me to talk about, but I do apologize for the internet issues. Hopefully they'll be able to get this all taken care of. I'm switching over to business internet, so let's hope that that works a little bit better. But thank you guys for coming. Thanks for being here today, and sorry for the troubles, but we will get this uploaded and go from there. We'll see you next Tuesday.